What's up, everybody? I'm Justin Young. He's Josh Tech. Welcome to May 1st. We made it through April, everybody. We made it through April. I can't believe
it. It feels good. It feels like we've been on a kind of a marathon sprint here, but it does feel pretty good to see the calendar change over.
It definitely does. It has been a monumentous April in a good way. Honestly, I feel like it's been probably it's been our busiest April we've ever had at Hoopsie, no question about it. But also been a lot of fun. We've seen a lot of players, a lot of different levels, a lot of competition, a lot of different events, a lot of different places. So yeah, that's tons of fun to put April behind us. But how you feeling, Josh? Doing all right?
Yeah, I'm doing as well as ever. Just kind of still recovering, in recovery mode. These Mondays are always recovery days.
Yeah, Monday. I like people. I don't think people realize how busy Mondays are for those in content, on the content side of like basketball. Like it is such a busy day. You're going through your notes. You're trying to talk to coaches. You're trying to go through your photos. You're trying to remember what you saw on Friday. I mean, it's a lot for us.
Oh my god, dude! Me trying to when you sent me the text this morning about like things for this episode, I was like, dude, I don't remember what I saw yesterday. It was just such a. And on Saturday, I was in that building for 13 hours, and I didn't not watch a game. You know what I'm saying? Like there was like one of those like it's all a blur right now. So I was like, I had to really sit down and kind of think pretty hard, and I'm still probably gonna forget a whole bunch. So
yeah, well, that's the beauty of watching film too. As we can go back and look through it. So, well, that's why we want to do this podcast too. We want to go back through our notes. We want to take. Why I say notes like that? Like I'm from Minnesota. I'm not sure how that happened, but we want to go back through everything that we saw. We want to talk about the players that we like. We want to talk about some of the games that we like. We got a long list of superlatives that we want to go over from the Grassroots Showcase, the largest event so far on the 2023 event calendar nationwide. I think we had over 850 teams combined at that event. So what a monster event there at the Kentucky Expo Center. So as you imagine, it's a lot to take in. It's a lot to see, which then in turn leads to a lot to talk about. But as we go through it, don't be surprised. We have some familiar names from our season so far, and that's the consistency of the type of play that we've seen along the way. And we'll talk about that in some of our superlatives here today on the Fast Break Show. I think what we'll do is we'll start from the top, Josh. Let's get the overall thoughts and just like what was the vibe overall this year? This is our third year now of going to Louisville. It's the biggest one that we've been a part of. The overall vibe kind of takeaway from the weekend.
I would say it was a great mixture of fun and chaos because there was so much going on, right? It is such a big event. Everywhere you look, it's just an endless stream. It's a Twilight Zone kind of picture of basketball courts in either direction. So you feel like you're just kind of trapped in this sea. So that's the chaos part. But then the fun part is that there is an endless stream of basketball courts. So you can just walk up and down and just sit down and find something good, right? There's a good game every which way you turn. So every direction I turned, I was like, oh, okay, well, I want to watch this for a second. And I turn around, okay, well, I want to watch this for a second. So it was endless entertainment for me.
Sure. Well, let's start there then, I guess, because of the amount of games that you have access to. Was there a definitive best game or best games that you saw from the weekend?
Yeah, it's hard to say that there's like a definitive one because this is one of those events where you are watching a little bit of multiple games at the same time. You're kind of like looking across a couple courts, checking the score on one game while you're there kind of paying attention, taking notes to another game. But one game that I did get to sit down for the most, I think I sat down for the entirety or most of it, was Bad Boys basketball versus the Atlanta All-Stars in the 16U division. Okay. That game was, you got really big-time performances from Alex Pierre-Louis from Bad Boys basketball. He had 30-plus points. Sam Mead went off for the All-Stars. He had like 20 points. Both guys were hitting from all over the floor. That game went into overtime, and it was won by the All-Stars on a buzzer-beating three-pointer from Chris Hutchinson, who goes to Alexander High School, who just won a state championship. So that kind of had everything you're looking for. Big-time performances, buzzer beaters, overtime, dramatics. It had a little bit of everything. So I think that one is one of the many games that kind of just really stuck with me, beyond the event on this Recovery Monday.
Anytime you say the team Bad Boys, instantly in my head, I think of Fox TV, and I want to start singing the song from Cops. I have to. So, I feel like I would support a warm-up music for that team, any event that we have moving forward, just to play that song. Just so
they have a whole laundry list of songs they could choose. So the one team should come out to one song. Well, their 16U should come out to another. Their 17U should come out to another. So they have a whole bunch of teams, and they should all come out to different iterations of Bad Boys songs.
Maybe that's a piece of content in our off season is the is we match teams with our perceived warm-up song. That actually be kind of fun. That means we're really, really bored. If you ever see that story on hoopsy.com, that means we've ran out of stories to write. But that actually
might be like a late August kind of after the travel season, before camp season starts, when we're like, what do we do? That's going to be like one of those.
That might be it. That might be the move. That might be the move. Any other games that kind of?
Yeah, I saw one of one. So one of one has two teams playing in the 17U division. It is their older group of players, the 2024 group of players. I saw them play multiple good games. They played one against Truth from DC. That game went into overtime as well. One of one pulled that out, and they also played a good North Carolina intra-state matchup between them and Team Trez, and that came down to the wire at the end of the game too. And it was, there's a potential missed call that could have gone either way. That was one of the deciding factors in that game. So one of one elite, you're going to get good talent in that game, or in those games, and they played a bunch of really close games, really entertaining games, back and forth games. So either of those two one of one games really stood out as well.
Got it. Yeah, I mean those are no easy tasks too, to play those teams. Truth in DC, and obviously you mentioned with Trez from North Carolina, one of the best teams on our platform the last couple of years. Was there for you? I mean, did 101 fall in that category of the best team for you for the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could just go ahead and put them in as the program in there, but specifically, one of one elite LaMelo Ball, which is what they went by this weekend. But we've known them as one of one elite rare the last couple weekends. It's mostly comprised of 2025s, I believe, if not entirely comprised of 2025s. That had to have been the most dominant team of the weekend. Yeah. I mean, they really just kind of continued to impress. They've continued to be a bit of a bulldozer this kind of last couple of weeks that we've seen them, starting with Carolina Jam and Atlanta Jam, and now Grassroots Showcase. This team continues to impress.
Yeah, I mean, they are the team that when you see them, you're like, oh, those are the guys. Yeah, they're just big.
Yeah, I mean, they have the kind of like really bright, flashy jerseys, and they be like really that defines their play style because they're really entertaining to watch. They're really like highlight reel team. They're dunking, they're doing all this stuff. You have like, prospects all over the floor on that team, especially some of their guys we'll get into here in a second. That you're just kind of like, wow, I need to sit down and watch this team. Like they just draw you in. They're like a magnet with like from their entire, the way they look, the way they kind of play on the court. It's just a really magnetizing team.
Yeah. In fact, go follow our Instagram page. You'll see a ton of videos. We've had a lot of video on that squad this year from a lot of different video creators. So make sure you follow us on Instagram at Hoopscene. Go over there. Got a ton of stuff on there too. So you're gonna want to go check that out. Sometimes when you have the team that you deem the best team, a lot of times they always have the best player. It seems like that's kind of the fitting theme there. I feel like this past weekend, that's kind of how it went.
Yeah, it's Javonte Ware. Like at this point, he is just stacking up incredible weekend after incredible weekend after incredible weekend. It's hard to believe that this guy is 16U division, or I mean, he's playing up in 17U, but it's hard to be, hard to realize, hard to believe that he's a 2025 kid because he's humongous. Like he looks like he could play in college right now. He's so athletic. He's so dominant. Like he dunks everything, rebounds everything, blocks shots. He is just the man right now. Like on this Hoopscene platform, you got to watch Javonte Ware. You're a college coach. You got to watch Javonte Ware. Like in June, when college coaches can actually reach out to him personally, he's going to have a long list of offers. He's already got some like high majors to local Division Ones. Like he's going to have a really lengthy list when we hit June. When we hit July, coaches are going to want to come out and see him because this guy's a monster, man. Like you just look at him, you're like, yep, that guy's a basketball player.
He looks like, and he plays like the kind of guys that we've seen that play for Memphis, like literally like the last, whether it was Calipari, whether it was Penny, whether it was whoever the coach was there. Javonte Ware looks like the kind of guy that's been a Memphis Tiger, highly athletic, terrific in transition, big and strong and physical along the way. I mean, we talked about it, maybe it was last night. I think it was last night. All the hours run together. But I think he's a top 150, maybe top 100 guy in the class of 2025. Yeah. Honestly, like pretty easily. And I think that kind of goes to show like what we've seen for such a long time is that, man, listen, these independent teams, they got dudes, man. They've got dudes, I guess they're a team, but nevertheless, like independent platforms have dudes that can go, and Javonte Ware has certainly proven that. And that's the key. I mean, right? You've got to be consistent every single week, and that's what we've seen. And I don't see that letting up. I'm excited to see him in a couple of weeks with Bob Gibbons again and match him up with some really good matchups too. So Yeah, I'm surprised to see him in our top 100 rankings sooner than later.
No, it's just like, he's the kind of guy that like opposing coaches will lament, just be like, they'll talk to you and be like, man, we just don't have an answer for that guy.
Yeah.
And when I respond, it's like, hey, not many teams do have an answer for that guy. There're just not many guys that can match with his physicality, his athleticism, his aggressiveness, just his all around play. It's just really impressive to watch for such a young guy.
Well, and also the depth in North Carolina. I know we talk about it ad nauseum, but man, 2025 class in North Carolina is so good. I mean, they are so deep, so many guys, so many different players for so many different levels, which is something that you got to love. And we talked about him a ton, but man, both of their teams have a lot of guys across the board. And if you've read anything,
seriously, like if you're a college coach, just sit down for one-on-one games at our events, because there's recruitable prospects all up and down both rosters. Division I, high major, low major, mid major, whatever. D2, they got guys all over for like a wide swath of coaches. So just come down, find those jerseys, find a 101 on the schedule, and just sit down for their games, because you're going to come out with something.
Go to Baller TV, go find the archives for the Atlanta gym. Go watch that film. It's really good stuff. So make sure you get a chance to go do it. You got a video guy, college coaches. Get him on that video, have him cut up the film. A lot of good players, not just for 101, but I mean for a lot of teams. That's kind of where I want to kind of pivot. One of the things that this spring's interesting, because a couple of things. One, I don't think the class of 2024 nationwide is I don't think it's a super deep class when it comes to like collegiate talent. I don't mean that negatively. I don't mean that in any sort of kind of way. It's just like historically, it's not grading as high as other classes have before.
There are ebbs and flows in recruiting classes, and this one just happens to be a little bit different than which you and I both agree that the 2025 class is looking very strong. So it's just kind of one of those ups and downs of recruiting classes.
Yeah, it's the way it goes. There's a lot of events going on right now. College coaches aren't really recruiting high school guys in the month of April. They're dealing with the portal. This story top to bottom. If you don't, that's the reality of where we are right now with college basketball recruiting. Is the high school players are probably the last line of resort when it comes to guys that want to add to their roster. So it kind of leads me to a couple things. I think this class of 2024 is going to yield. And I hate the term sleeper and I also hate the term exposure. Exposure is such a BS thing. We're overexposed now in youth basketball. Like you cannot be a sleeper any longer in the context that people can't see you. We're seeing a lot of basketball. Now it's getting people to believe that. That's the real question. And I think that's the thing moving forward. But I think we've seen a lot of guys already this year in the springtime that are going to be really good players for coaches to recruit in the summertime. Or if they do have an offer, and if you're a high school player, you do have an offer, you need to strongly consider taking it quickly, because these things are flying by really fast. A lot of coaches aren't. Like I talked to a really good college coach last week, and I'm like, how many scholarships are you going to offer a high school guy? Because honestly, maybe 5 a year. 5. And he's a really smart, really methodical head coach at a very, very good program. He's like, yeah, we may offer 5, maybe 8 maximum if it's a deep year. But this year, 5 is a pretty aggressive number. I thought, wow, that's insane. 5, right? So if you have an opportunity, you've got to take it. And I think what's going to happen because of that, and we're going to talk about some of these story starters where I could see them going somewhere, because we've seen this. Like I look at Tyreek Key, for example, who's at Tennessee. Okay, he goes to Indiana State. Tyreek Key was one of the most accomplished players in the state of Tennessee. Played at a small school, but that dude could go get a freaking bucket. Okay,
yeah,
he goes to Indiana State, bucket getter. That's who he is. That is in his DNA. And then he quote unquote levels up to Tennessee and plays significant minutes for the Volunteers. I think we're going to see a lot of players that take a really similar path that go one place and level up after they've gone their freshman year, because I think coaches at any level now are more prone to saying, hey, I'd like this guy. I don't mind somebody else going and taking him. Okay. And then conversations are had where then he wants to transfer and ends up leveling up and going higher. And again, I think I set that stage to say, I think some of these guys that we're about to talk about wouldn't shock me if that's the route that a lot of these guys go, because I think they're really good. I just don't think enough people are watching them and acting accordingly with their scholarships because of the nature of where we are with college basketball. I'm getting off my platform now, and I'm going to turn it over to you to tell me about some of the guys that were some of the story starters or some of the players that could fall in this category of maybe being a level up type of player.
Well, I don't know that he's going to be a level up type of player. I actually think he might be. He could be, but I think he's leveling up right now. And it's a guy that, both of these guys that I'm going to talk about started their stories at Atlanta, James, for me, and then just really bolstered their cases this past weekend. First guy, let's go back to 101 really quickly, is Sebastian Akins. He's a 2024 guard. This guy's just been super impressive at the point guard spot. I think he's going to have a lengthy list of Division I offers by the time July wraps up, by the time August hits. This guy has just absolutely been tremendous. I know that this team is really built on their powerful forwards, their powerful wings, their powerful athleticism, and all of that. But this guy's the guy that kind of stirs the drink at the point guard spot. He dishes the alley-oops to those guys. He can score himself, but he's more of a facilitator. He kind of sets the table for all of those wings, all of that athleticism. And I think he is going to be a guy that really skyrockets starting in June. That's when, college coaches are really going to start getting out there and sending out offers to high school guys in a really significant way. So I think starting in June, he's going to be a guy to look out for. And then let's take a visit to our guys, the Mississauga Monarchs up there in Ontario, Canada. Nick Nier, I believe is how you say his last name. He's a guy that really impressed all of our staff last weekend at the Atlanta Jam. 6'5" guard, 6'5" wing. He can score. He's athletic. He's really tough. And this weekend, our guy Spencer Arons, he went out with an injury early on. But Nick Nier really stepped up and kind of bolstered that kind of star power that Spencer brings. And he's a guy that I'm really high on in the 2025 class as being, maybe right now he's a sleeper because, Canada doesn't quite get the exposure that we brought up that all the United States teams get. But he's a guy that I think is going to rise in that 2025 class. Right now, I think he's a no-brainer D1 kid. And I think that, at some point we're going to look up and that no-brainer D1 level is going to keep raising to a no-brainer, blah, 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 no-brainer, blah, blah, blah. He's just going to keep leveling up. And by this time next year, I think his recruitment is going to be really, really hot.
Yeah, I think so too. I think there's a lot of guys in that 25 class that we're going to certainly see that. Let me ask about some of these Florida teams, actually. I feel like, you mentioned Bad Boys as a team. Southwest Florida Hoops is a team that we really liked. Wellington Wolves is a team that we really like. Florida Pro, obviously. But I feel like there's a, TNBA. I feel like every one of their rosters this year, I feel like our depth of talent maybe even more healthy than even it was last year. And especially some of these Florida teams. Any guys on those Florida teams really kind of jump off at you?
Yeah, one of the guys I was trying to. This is funny. I was trying to sneak out of the gym. So for those who don't know, I'm from Louisville, and when we go up there for events and stuff like that, I stay with family and all that. So I was trying to sneak out a little bit early, like before that last time slot ended on Friday to go have dinner with some friends and stuff like that. But I got stopped because I kept seeing this dude just dunking all over the place, super athletic, and I was like, well, I got. Let me just sit here and watch this for a second. And it was Southwest Florida Hoops Red. Their 2024 team, and I got Chris Cornish. He's a 6'5", 6'6" wing who is just freakishly athletic. This guy he's on our top performers list and all that. And last weekend, I remember, also for those who don't know, a lot of the stories that go up on the site, I kind of at least see because I'm either posting them or editing them or doing something with them. So I saw Justin Byerly really was impressed with him last weekend. And then when I stopped and, was like, oh, who's this kid that's just putting up all these, insane dunks and just like really dominating in transition and all that. I was like, who's this kid? And I saw Cornish and I was like, oh, that's the guy that JB liked last weekend. So I sat and watched and I was like, man, this guy's awesome. Like he's a really good, fun player to watch. He had like 23 points, I think, in that game. And I think he's a guy that should be on Division I radars as well. Yeah, I think he's another guy that can pop in June and then carry that momentum over into July and really get some D1 radars or get on D1 radars because he is so athletic, he's so productive and all of that. He's a really fun player to watch. And then another guy that's been a top performer the last couple weekends is Enrico Borio with Florida Pro, 6'7", 6'6", 6'8", that kind of range. Wing from Brazil originally. He lives down there, goes to North Broward Prep now, I believe. And he's so versatile. He's athletic. He can put the ball on the floor. He can shoot it. He's just kind of been stacking those weekends, stacking those performances. And now I think he's another guy that Division I teams should start getting eyes on early because, Florida Pro always has a sleeper. And I think that he can be the sleeper. I think this time next year when we look up, we'll be like, oh yeah, he signed to a Division I. That's no surprise, So I think he's another guy from Florida to look out for. And then you brought up the Wellington Wolves. They have a guy, Elijah Freeman, who had he had Murray State watching on Sunday when I was there catching one of their games. Reggie Reinhardt, he's a guy that's been playing really well at the guard spot. They have a guy, last name, not even going to attempt to pronounce it right now because I'm still kind of delirious from the weekend. His name's Matt, and his last name is a P. He's like a 6'9" forward, and it's like a European sounding last name. So go look up Wellington Wolves. We'll put him up on the site because I'm going to write about him today at some point. But this guy is also really good, 6'9" forward, really high motor, physical, but can also step out and play more of a finesse kind of game. So he's another versatile piece for the Wellington Wolves. If you're a college coach, just go watch the Wellington Wolves. They have prospects for you.
Yeah, we got a ton of, you mentioned, we have a ton of content on our site, so you're going to want to go check it out. I mean, really, the whole month we're just pumping out stuff. It really is like a cheat sheet for your deep cut guys that you're going to want to watch, on film in this month coming up. Bob Gibbons Tournament Champions, so I want to talk about that here in a second. And then, of course, as you get ready for June and July, I'm telling you, man, we got a cheat sheet built out for you that you're going to want to take a look at. You know what I was thinking about this weekend when I was watching the Grassroots Showcase? I thought, I can't wait for us to see the Bob Gibbons Tournament Champions. I feel like this year we're seeing like these matchups kind of matriculate, knowing the teams that we have coming in. Like, we don't care so much about what platform you compete on. We just want to have guys that want to come compete and play for a championship, which to me makes for the most competitive weekend, I think, of the year at the Bob Gibbons Tournament Champions. And I can't wait for us to kind of get in there, seed some stuff out, and to kind of figure out some of these matchups. I'm fired up about that. That's coming up May 12th through the 14th, so really in a couple of weeks. And that's an event that we always sell out on. So if you haven't registered for that, make sure you go do that right now on hoopscene.com/events. I'll be there for that, along as our entire staff for that one. So it should be tons of fun coming up here in a couple of weeks. Did we talk about underclassmen? I know we've talked about a lot. Did we dive into some of the underclassmen at all?
We haven't yet. And when you asked me that, I was kind of putting together a list of names, and there's a ton of underclassmen that stood out. I spent a pretty good amount of time trying to watch various, younger teams. But I came up with a trio. I just came up with the first two guys that popped up on my radar were guys named Alex. So I just rounded it out with a trio of Alexes. Let's go with Alex Pierre for the Bad Boys basketball. He is the kind of guy that we've seen out of that program a lot. He's tough. He's versatile. He can do a little bit of everything. He's kind of an in-betweener. He's not quite a guard, wing, whatever, but he's like their primary playmaker, option A and B on offense. He can shoot it. He can get to the rim. He can, create tough shots. He can hit tough shots. He put up 30-plus points against the All-Stars. He's one of those guys that always has those, 20-point game, 30-point game, 15-point, whatever. Like, he's just a guy that always produces for them, and he was really impressive. I think he's a guy that, could emerge as a prospect this summer and then into next summer more specifically. And then Alex Young for Norcross Heat. He's a guy that we've seen on our platform for years, whether it be with Norcross Heat on the Hoop Scene AAU circuit or at our preview camps, fall, elite preview, spring preview, wherever we've seen Alex, come through multiple times and just really put up top performer-esque performances. He's a guy that does a little bit of everything. He defends, he rebounds out of his area, he rebounds his position really well. He's tough on the glass. He's savvy on defense. He can do a little bit of everything on offense. He had, a couple 20-point games, and he led them to a 4-0 weekend. Norcross Heat 2025 has had a really successful season. They don't really lose many games, and he's one of the main reasons behind that.
I mean, let's be honest. The real reason he's a Young. I mean, it's in our DNA, Josh.
Yeah.
It's in our DNA. That's all that we do.
That's true. Yeah, the Youngs win, apparently. And then you mentioned them earlier when you talked about Florida, TNBA. There was a stretch of time where every court I turned around to see, let's say I was in the middle of 4 courts. I would turn around. There was a TNBA team. 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 So I was trapped in this TNBA universe, this TNBA Twilight Zone, which I didn't mind at all because I got a lot of good notes on this squad that we're seeing for the first time this season. But in their 2025 group, Alex Springs, and I have to look at the name here because they have a lot of teams, TNBA South Kings. He's a guy that really impressed with just his toughness. He's one of those guys where, college coaches or high school coaches or whoever, AAU coaches, will say that, to their players, they'll say something like, basketball rewards people who play hard. And for someone like me, I'm like, all right, whatever, dude. Like, whatever. But hey, that rang true with Alex Springs. He played hard. He ended up with, 25 points on Friday. He ended up with 19 points on Saturday in the game that I watched. And it's because of his effort, right? He got most of his stuff based on how hard he played, how hard he pursued rebounds, how hard he defended. And he didn't need the ball to be successful. He just went out there and did his thing and kind of had a really good game scoring wise, but he did a lot of things to impact the win outside of the box score, right? It was a lot of 50-50 balls. There was a lot of toughness plays. So I was really impressed with him. This is my first time seeing him. So I was really impressed with what he brought to the table.
I like it. I feel like there was a theme of shot makers, and I feel like the guards. I mean, I just feel like the depth of guard and guys that can really shoot. I mean, also one of those cliches, and I actually believe it to be true. Like, if you can shoot, if you have a skill, you'll be able to find a place to play. And I feel like that was kind of a theme for this weekend as well.
Yeah, it was specifically, I feel like on Saturday that I saw a ton of shooting because when I was going through my writing my Saturday recap for the site or whatever, I feel like every time I was writing something, it was like, and this guy had 7 3-pointers. This guy had this many 3-pointers. I was like, all right. At the end of the when I got to a certain point, I was like, all right, you guys, everybody was just lighting it up on Saturday apparently. But we did have a lot of really great 3-point shooting performances. I believe the record. I didn't get to see all 10 billion courts, so I could be wrong. But I believe the record was AE5 Gold. That's the 2025 group. Peyton Waits, I believe the record was 9 3-pointers. He hit it on Friday or Saturday, I believe. Garrett Tucker was the guy that alerted me to this guy going off.
The record for the Grassroots Showcase, the record for hoop scene in general.
Grassroots Showcase. Showcase.
Got it.
Yeah. And like I said, there was a lot of courts, so maybe somebody had 10, maybe somebody had 11, but the record from what I'm aware of is 9 from Peyton Waits, and Garrett Tucker and I both got to see him really light it up for them. But then our guy Jarvis Wright for South Georgia Elite, he's known as a shooter. We've known that he's a shooter for years. He had 6 in a game. He looked like he was really gunning for that record. And then Khalil Smallwood, the last game of the entire weekend that I watched was Norcross Heat 2024. Khalil Smallwood in that game, he had 7 3-pointers. So he had a really, great shooting performance to end everything for me. And then James Salisbury for Bad Boys Basketball 17U, he had 7 3-pointers at 8 a.m. on Saturday morning. So while I was, bleary-eyed trying to chug down some coffee to get me through the day, he was out there lighting it up. So I don't know. I guess he found the secret coffee spot that I didn't know about in my own hometown, because he had a really good cup apparently that morning. And then Alex Pierre, the guy that I was talking about for the Bad Boys Basketball 16U, he had a really good shooting performance. So everywhere I looked, I felt like I found a really good shooter on a court.
Well, when you said he broke the record, I felt the anxiety raise up for my friend Colby Leifson, who played with us years ago at the Atlanta All-Stars at the Bob Gibbons Tournament Champions, I think it was, where we had that at a live period event. This dude, I think legitimately he had 9 threes in the first half, and everybody was there watching. Like Jeff Borzello, my friend from ESPN, was there. All his college coaches were there. I think he parlayed that into a scholarship to Brigham Young, and went on and played at Utah Valley as well. But Colby, you're fine. Yeah, relax. Your record is still safe for the overall most made threes at hoop scene. But 9.
Yeah, that record that I'm speaking of for this was just for this year of this event specifically. I'm sure that last year there was probably a great 3-point shooting performance at this.
To shoot like that at Louisville, I actually think was pretty remarkable, because I would not think that's an easy place to shoot with the lights and then how many courts there are. Yeah. So kudos to all the guys that lit it up. So speaking of lighting it up, we've been lighting up for almost 30 minutes. I can't believe we've been talking this long about the Grassroots Showcase. I mean, I actually can if I think about it.
Yeah, being in there, I'm surprised that this isn't going to go 10 hours long, because I feel like
I'm glad it's not. I think everybody else is glad it's not too. So well, this is good stuff. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. Make sure you follow us on Instagram. Go ahead, and if you're watching this on Twitter, actually make sure you go subscribe to us on YouTube as well. We got a lot of stuff coming up. And go over to hoopscene.com and find the news over there. We got tons of stuff. Again, college coaches, if you made it this long, shout out to you. But make sure you go over there, check out all this content. This stuff is built for you to be successful. We're not amateurs in this, man. We're professionals. We've done this a long time. We know what we're talking about. We've got decades of it now of proof of guys that we know what we're talking about. And so hopefully you do that. You put it to use and you go watch these guys play. So Josh, this was good stuff, man. Always appreciate your insight. Get some rest. And we're back at it again with the Georgia Cup Finals at Swanee Sports Academy. And the Bama Cup. Actually, we got the Bama Cup. We got that tipping off this weekend as well in Guntersville, Alabama. So good stuff, Josh. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.